What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I am ranking the kings and flops of leg day, and just in case you're wondering, these are my glutes and leg credentials. Think of this as the ultimate tier list, okay? From god tier movements that you absolutely need in your workout program, all the way down to exercises that you can honestly skip. So first of all, we have S tier or SS, which is the highest tier. So top tier performance here, okay? And next we have A. This is a high tier rank. This also indicates very good and strong options that are solid performers. And then we have the B tier. This is good. They're okay. The C tier is acceptable. All right. It's just there, but it's still functional. Then the D tier, which is obviously the lowest. It has like the weakest exercises that are ranked on the list. Now that I've gotten this out of the way and you understand how the rankings are gonna be done, let's get into the video. Number one on my list are squats. This definitely goes on the SS tier list. This is a compound movement everyone should have in their lower body program. Squats build overall leg strength. You're hitting probably all your major muscle groups in your legs. So your quads, your hamstrings, your calves. You're also hitting bits of your glutes as well. So if you are looking for overall strength and size in your legs, then you absolutely should be doing squats. I emphasize on barbell squats. Squats build core stability and athletic performance. There are so many different variations of a squat that you can do. So they're very versatile exercises. So if you had one leg exercise to do forever, it should be a squat. Another exercise I'm going to put in my S tier zone is the leg press. I feel like the leg press has earned its flowers, especially as a quad building exercise or machine rather. It's great for loading your quads heavily in a very safe and controlled place. It's also a very ideal machine to use if your goal is hypertrophy without you worrying about balance or spinal fatigue. Some pros of using a leg press: it allows you to load your legs heavy, like I said, in a safe fixed position. Also, it's quad dominant, but you can adjust your foot placement to hit your glutes or your hamstrings. Also, you have lower risk of spinal loading compared to squats. And again, like I said, it's great for hypertrophy because you can push near to failure without worrying about your balance. The leg press machine is perfect for beginners, advanced lifters, or people who are just trying to rehab their way back into the gym and they can't do something like a barbell squat. Obviously, great alternative. I like to either do both or do one at a time depending on what I feel like doing at the gym that day. But sometimes with every pro, there is a con. Now, some of the cons of a leg press. Now, when using a leg press, the leg press movement doesn't really mimic any real life scenarios like a squat would. For example, there's no movement in real life where you have to lay on your back and push your legs down towards your chest. However, there are real life moments where you would have to squat down and pick up something off of the floor, if that kind of makes sense. So basically what I'm trying to say is that the movement of a leg press doesn't really translate to any, it doesn't mimic any real life movement. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that the exercise isn't really as functional as a barbell squat. Also, when people do leg press, I've noticed that there's a temptation to always ego lift, because a lot of people will go to a leg press machine and slap on like 5 20 kg plates on there thinking that it's going to be a walk in the park and then end up getting an injury. So yeah, there's a temptation to ego lift when you're using a leg press. Also, there's a limited stabilizer engagement in comparison to free weights. Next exercise on my list, I'm gonna put this in the S tier. It is an RDL, Romanian deadlifts. RDLs are elite hamstring and glute builders. This is a staple in all of my lower body workouts. If you've seen me train, if you watch any of my training videos, I'm always doing a variation of an RDL. So I'm either doing both legs or I'm doing a B stance, like a staggered stance RDL. But these are perfect if your goal is to build definition in your hamstrings and your glutes. RDLs are also incredible for your posterior chain strength and your hip hinge pattern. RDL doesn't quite hit God tier because the form breakdown is quite common and it's also less quad focused. Next leg exercise I'm ranking on my list, and I'm gonna put this in the A category. It is a goblet squat. A category is still pretty decent. This is still a very good movement, a good lower body quad focused exercise. Goblet squats, in my opinion, I personally like doing my goblet squats elevated, so like hill elevated goblet squat. These are excellent for beginners and also for advanced lifters like myself as well, especially as a hypertrophy tool. Also, a goblet squat can teach proper squat mechanics and depth without heavy spinal load, and like I said, it's a good exercise for building your quads and also to build core stability. However, there's less load potential when doing a goblet squat as opposed to when you're doing a barbell squat, for example, but it's amazing for volume conditioning and it's also a good accessory movement. So now we are down to the B tier list. These are okay exercises. They're good. Like I wouldn't have these, I wouldn't be doing these exercises all the time. In this B tier zone, I'm going to go ahead and put a walking lunge here. Now, walking lunges obviously aren't bad. I prefer doing my lunges kind of like a deficit lunge, split squat situation. However, with a walking lunge, it is a good unilateral movement for your legs. It's also great for balance, stability, and functional strength. However, my problem with the walking lunge is it's a high fatigue exercise. You're gonna fatigue quite easily. It does require a lot of space, and this exercise is not always practical. So B tier for sure. Another exercise I'm going to throw in my B tier list are leg extensions. Now, I personally don't really do this exercise as often as I can or should, but that's because there are other exercises that you can substitute with this exercise, okay? So if I'm at the gym, for example, and it's leg day and the machine is available, I'm going to use a machine, but I can do without this exercise. It's a good exercise, but you can also target your quads in other ways. Now, of course, this exercise has some cons. One being it is a great way to isolate your quads. It's also a really good exercise for hypertrophy. So you're going to have a very strong mind to muscle connection when you are using a leg extension. And one thing I do love about a leg extension, it's a really great isolation, or it's a really great finisher after you've done like a heavy compound exercise. So after doing a squat, you can throw in a leg extension exercise as a finisher for your leg day. Now, it does have its cons, one being that it has limited carryover to functional strength. Also, this exercise tends to put a lot of stress on your knee joints at a top range. And lastly, it's not enough of an exercise to build your legs. So you do need to have some sort of compound exercise that you're doing in conjunction with this exercise. Moving down on the list to my D tier, I personally hate like ranking exercises as bad. I don't see any one exercise as a bad exercise, but when you're putting all of these other exercises on a list, this will probably be like the lot. This is not even part of my routine. So in this zone, I'm going to go ahead and put step ups. Now, step ups are usually done as glute exercises, which I think I should actually make another category or another list entirely for just glute exercises, but I'm going to put a step up here. And the reason is because it has its pros, but it also has its cons, okay? Especially if you're using it to build your legs. Like I said, it's done mostly for glutes, but I know some people who do it as leg exercises. And so here's why it's down here on this zone. Number one, this exercise can be very awkward to set up. You have to master like the bench height. And also, if you're somebody who struggles with balance, you are definitely going to struggle with doing a step up. Number two, it's very difficult for you to progressively overload beyond a certain point when doing a step up. Like, how much weights could you actually use doing a step up? You know what I mean? Like, at least with a squat, like you can load I don't want to say an infinite amount, okay, because it all depends on your strength, but like it's vast the amount of weights that you can use to do a squat, right? But with a step up, and a lot of people mostly use dumbbells, so like it's like what is the maximum dumbbell you can carry when you're doing a step up, right? I mean, you can use a cable machine as well, but then again, that's also like, there's a limit to that, you know what I mean? So it's hard to overload when you're doing a step up. Next, this exercise can definitely feel more like a cardio exercise as opposed to doing it for hypertrophy, especially if it's not programmed very well. And finally, it's less efficient when compared to squats or lunges. So yeah, I'm gonna keep this exercise in the D tier. Another exercise I'm going to throw into my D tier. This is going to be a little bit painful for me. It's probably going to be painful for you if you love doing squats on the Smith machine, but it is a Smith machine squat. Now, this is not a terrible exercise or a terrible place to do squats. I think it's really great for beginners and people who are trying to master how to do a squat, or if you struggle with your form when using a barbell, it can be a good substitute. However, a Smith machine kind of forces an unnatural bar path, and it kind of removes that stabilizer work. It's fine if you don't have any other options, but I would never replace a barbell squat with a Smith machine squat. Like, it's just never gonna happen. And that is my list. As I said, this is my personal ranking. Let me know what your thoughts are in my comments. What exercise did I miss? How would you rank your leg day workouts? Do you think that my list is wrong? Let me know your thoughts down below in my comments. And as usual, I will see you guys in my next video.